I would have never imagined to let go of, to heal, and to grow. And actually letting go can be a little bit uncomfortable, but it can become very beautiful and rich in a very short time. Verse before the Dharma talk. The Dharma is vast and subtle. We now have a chance to hear it, study it, and practice it. We vow to realize its true meaning. The Dharma is vast and subtle. We now have a chance to hear it, study it, and practice it. We vow to realize its true meaning. The Dharma is vast and subtle. We now have a chance to hear it, study it, and practice it. We vow to realize its true meaning. The 10-line sutra of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, boundless life. Avalokiteshvara, perceiver of the cries of the world, takes refuge in Buddha, will be a Buddha, helps all to be Buddhas, is not separate from Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Being eternal, intimate, pure, and joyful, in the morning be one with Avalokiteshvara. In the evening be one with Avalokiteshvara, whose heart moment by moment arises, whose heart moment by moment remains. Avalokiteshvara, perceiver of the cries of the world, takes refuge in Buddha, will be a Buddha, helps all to be Buddhas, is not separate from Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Being eternal, intimate, pure, and joyful, in the morning be one with Avalokiteshvara. In the evening be one with Avalokiteshvara, whose heart moment by moment arises, whose heart moment by moment remains. Avalokiteshvara, perceiver of the cries of the world, takes refuge in Buddha, will be a Buddha, helps all to be Buddhas, is not separate from Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Being eternal, intimate, pure, and joyful, in the morning be one with Avalokiteshvara. In the evening be one with Avalokiteshvara, whose heart moment by moment arises, whose heart moment by moment remains. All Buddhas throughout space and time, all Bodhisattvas Bodhisattva Mahasattva, wisdom beyond wisdom, Mahaprajna Paramita. Great compassionate heart Dharani. Homage to the three treasures. Homage to noble Avalokiteshvara, noble Bodhisattva Mahasattva, who embodies great compassion. Om, homage to you who protect all who are fearful. Being one with you, the blue-necked noble Avalokiteshvara, I bring forth your radiant heart that grants all wishes, overcomes obstacles, and purifies delusion. Here is the mantra. Om, you are luminous with shining wisdom, you transcend the world. O Lion King, great Bodhisattva, remember this heart. Act, realize, continue, victor, great victor, maintain, embodiment of freedom. Arise, the immaculate one, the undefiled being. Advance, you are supreme on this earth. You remove the harm of greed. You remove the harm of hatred. You remove the harm of delusion. Lion King, remove all defilements. The universal lotus grows from your navel. Act, cease, flow, awake, compassionate one, enlighten, blue-necked one, you bring joys to those who wish to see you clearly, Shvaha, you succeed, Shvaha, you greatly succeed, Shvaha, you have mastered the practice, Shvaha, blue-necked one, Shvaha, boar-faced one, lion-faced one, Shvaha, you hold the lotus, Shvaha, you hold the blade wheel, Shvaha, you liberate through the sound of the conch, Shvaha, you hold the great staff, Shvaha, you are the dark conqueror abiding near the left shoulder, Shvaha, you wear a tiger skin, Shvaha, homage to the three treasures, homage to noble Avalokiteshvara, Shvaha, realize all phrases of this mantra, Shvaha. Metta Sutta. Avero Omi May all here who receive this message be free from suffering. Sapitiyo vivachantu saparoko vinasatu mape pawa danasilita ayu ano sukang baram. Thank you, Jason. It's good to be curious. But if we're using our curiosity to just try and understand something, that will be really, really difficult. Because we can't understand everything, and everything is constantly appearing. What's here right now is everything for you. So trying to intellectually grasp this or understand this is like trying to intellectually understand or grasp everything. Just not possible. In trying to intellectually understand this, it's just like trying to hold a thought with a thought. It's like a thought trying to understand another thought. It doesn't really make sense. So this activity is less in the brain, it's more in the heart. It's more in the gut. It's more in the feeling. Deep listening and deep sharing. There can never really be too much spiritual work, but sometimes you may do a lot of spiritual work and then you need to take a rest. And that's how we learn to take a rest spiritually. We learn how to find our center by not just constantly distracting ourselves and accumulating things, but by giving a lot. So then we meet ourselves in this place of vulnerability. We actually start to be able to see a little bit of the workings of karma or cause and effect. We get to see how what we do affects us moment by moment. We start to think about the idea of being free from thinking about things as a great way to live life, or as our fundamental way of living life. This is really more a matter of being together than something being taught here to you. Someone teaching something to you. I'm not here to teach something to anybody. I think as Americans, we're probably pretty burned out through the American education system of people teaching us something. So I'm not really trying to teach anyone anything in that way. Thank you, brother. Yeah, we need unteaching, exactly. So I'm here to unteach. Oh my goodness. This Tibetan Book of the Dead that somebody told me to download and look at is incomprehensibly complex, and I'm not going to say convoluted, but oh my gosh. So we can hear this at least. O fortunate children, listen to these words. The term mind is commonplace and widely used. Yet there are those who do not understand its meaning. Those who falsely understand it, those who partially understand it, and those who have not quite understood its genuine reality. Thus there has arisen an inconceivably vast number of assertions as to the nature of mind, posited by the various philosophical systems. Further, since ordinary persons do not understand the meaning of the term mind and do not intuitively recognize its nature, they continue to roam through the 6 classes of sentient rebirth within the 3 world systems. Not something that you need to understand right now. And consequently experience suffering. This is the fault of not understanding this intrinsic nature of mind. Even though pious attendants and hermit Buddhas claim that they understand this single nature of mind as the partial absence of self, they do not understand it exactly as it is. Furthermore, being fettered by opinions held in accordance with their respective literatures and philosophical systems, there are those who do not perceive the inner radiance directly. The pious attendants and hermit Buddhas are obscured in this respect by their attachment to the subject-object dichotomy. The adherents of Madhyamaka are obscured by their attachment to the extremes of the two truths. The practitioners of Kriya Tantra and Yoga Tantra are obscured by their attachment to the extremes of ritual service and attainment. The practitioners of Maha-yoga and Anu-yoga are obscured by their attachment to the extremes of space and awareness. All these practitioners stray from the point because they polarize the non-dual reality. And since they fail to unify these extremes in non-duality, they do not attain Buddhahood. Thus, all of those beings continue to roam in cyclic existence, because they persistently engage in forms of renunciation and in acts of rejection and acceptance with regard to their own minds, where in reality, cyclic existence and nirvana are inseparable. Therefore, one should abandon all constructed teachings and all unnatural states free from activity. And by virtue of this introduction to awareness, natural liberation through naked perception, which is presented here, one should realize all things in the context of this great natural liberation. So it is that all enlightened attributes are brought to completion within the great perfection. Samaya, Raiga, Raiga, Raiga. As for this apparent and distinct phenomena, which is called mind, in terms of existence, it has no inherent existence whatsoever. In terms of origination, it is the source of the diverse joys and sorrows of cyclic existence and nirvana. In terms of philosophical opinion, it is subject to opinions in accordance with the 11 vehicles. In terms of designation, it has an inconceivable number of distinct names. Some call it the nature of mind itself. Some eternalists give it the name self. Pious attendants call it selflessness of the individual. Chittamatrins call it mind. Some call it the perfection of discriminative awareness. Some call it the nucleus of the Sugata. Some call it the Great Seal. Some call it the unique seminal point. Some call it the expanse of reality. Some call it the ground of all. And some call it ordinary, unfabricated consciousness. The following is the introduction to the means of experiencing this single nature of mind. Through the application of 3 considerations. First, recognize that past thoughts are traceless, clear, and empty. Second,
recognize that future thoughts are unproduced and fresh. And third, recognize that the present moment abides naturally and unconstructed. When this ordinary momentary consciousness is examined nakedly and directly by oneself, upon examination it is a radiant awareness, which is free from the presence of an observer, manifestly stark and clear, completely empty and uncreated in all aspects, lucid, without duality of radiance and emptiness, not permanent, for it is lacking inherent existence in all respects, not a mere nothingness, for it is radiant and clear, not a single entity, for it is clearly perceptible as a multiplicity, yet not existing inherently as a multiplicity, for it is indivisible and of a single savor. This intrinsic awareness, which is not extraneously derived, is itself the genuine introduction to the abiding nature of all things. For in this intrinsic awareness, the three Buddha bodies are inseparable and fully present as one. Its emptiness and utter lack of inherent existence is the Buddha body of reality. The natural resonance and radiance of this emptiness is the Buddha body of perfect resource, and its unimpeded arising in any form whatsoever is the Buddha body of emanation. These three, fully present as one, are the very essence of awareness itself. Fall asleep into awareness rather than waking up into discriminating thoughts. Consequences of the introduction to awareness. When the introduction is powerfully applied in accordance with the above method for entering into this reality, one's own immediate consciousness is this very reality. Abiding in this reality, which is uncontrived and naturally radiant, how can one say that one does not understand the nature of mind? Abiding in this reality, wherein there is nothing on which to meditate, how can one say that by having entered into meditation, one was not successful? Abiding in this reality, which is one's actual awareness itself, how can one say that one could not find one's own mind? Abiding in this reality, the uninterrupted union of radiance and awareness, how can one say that the true face of mind has not been seen? Abiding in this reality, which is itself the cognizer, how can one say that, though sought, this cognizer could not be found? Abiding in this reality, where there is nothing at all to be done, how can one say that whatever one did not succeed? Given that it is sufficient to leave this awareness as it is, uncontrived, how can one say that one could not continue to abide in that state? Given that it is sufficient to leave it as it is, without doing anything whatsoever, how can one say that one could not do just that? Given that within this reality, radiance, awareness, and emptiness are inseparable and spontaneously present, how can one say that by having practiced, one attained nothing? Given that this reality is naturally originating and spontaneously present without causes or conditions, how can one say that by having made the effort to find it, one was incapable of success? Given that the arising and liberation of conceptual thoughts occur simultaneously, how can one say that by having applied this antidote to conceptual thoughts, one was not effective? So this is not about other conceptual thoughts. This is an antidote to conceptual thoughts themselves. And if you don't understand that, you need to sit down and shut up and listen. Abiding in this immediate consciousness itself, how can one say that one does not know this reality? Observations related to examining the nature of mind. Be certain that the nature of mind is empty and without foundation. One's own mind is insubstantial, like an empty sky. Look at your own mind to see whether it is like that or not. Divorced from views which constructedly determine the nature of emptiness, be certain that pristine cognition, naturally originating, is primordially radiant. Just like the nucleus of the sun, which is itself naturally originating, look at your own mind to see whether it is like that or not. Be certain that this awareness, which is pristine cognition, is uninterrupted, like the coursing central torrent of a river which flows unceasingly. Look at your own mind to see whether it is like that or not. Be certain that conceptual thoughts and fleeting memories are not strictly identifiable, but insubstantial in their motion, like the breezes of the atmosphere. Look at your own mind to see whether it is like that or not. Be certain that all that appears is naturally manifest in the mind, like the images in a mirror which also appear naturally. Look at your own mind to see whether it is like that or not. Be certain that all characteristics are liberated right where they are, like the clouds of the atmosphere naturally originating and naturally dissolving, Look at your own mind to see whether it is like that or not. There are no phenomena outside from those that originate from the mind. So how could there be anything on which to meditate apart from the mind? There are no phenomena extraneous to those that originate from the mind. So, there are no modes of conduct to be undertaken extraneously to those that originate from the mind. There are no phenomena extraneous to those that originate from the mind. So, there are no commitments to be kept extraneous to those that originate from the mind. There are no phenomena extraneous to those that originate from the mind. So, there are no results to be attained extraneous to those that originate from the mind. There are no phenomena extraneous to those that originate from the mind. So, one should observe one's own mind, looking into its nature again and again. If, upon looking outwards towards the external expanse of the sky, there are no projections emanated by the mind, and if, on looking inwards at one's own mind, there is no projectionist who projects thoughts by thinking them, then one's own mind, completely free from conceptual projections, will become luminously clear. This intrinsic awareness, union of inner radiance and emptiness, is the Buddha body of reality, appearing like the illumining effect of a sunrise on a clear and cloudless sky. It is clearly knowable, despite its lack of specific shape or form. This is a great distinction between those who understand and those who misunderstand this point. This naturally originating inner radiance, uncreated from the very beginning, it is the parentless child of awareness. How amazing! It is the naturally originating pristine cognition, uncreated by anyone. How amazing! This radiant awareness has never been born and will never die. How amazing! Though manifestly radiant, it lacks an extraneous perceiver. How amazing! Though it has roamed throughout cyclic existence, it does not degenerate. How amazing! Though it has seen Buddhahood itself, it does not improve. How amazing! Though it is present in everyone, it remains unrecognized. How amazing! Still, one hopes for some attainment other than this. How amazing! Though it is present within oneself, one continues to seek it elsewhere. How amazing! Intrinsic awareness as view, meditation, conduct, and result. Ema. This immediate awareness, insubstantial and radiant, is itself the highest of all views. This non-referential, all-encompassing awareness, which is free in every respect, is itself the highest of all meditations. This uncontrived activity based on awareness, simply expressed in worldly terms, is itself the highest of all types of conduct. This unsought attainment of awareness, spontaneously present from the beginning, is itself the highest of all results. Now, the four great media, which are errorless, are presented. First, The great medium of errorless view is this radiant, immediate awareness. Since it is radiant and without error, it is called a medium. Second, the great medium of errorless meditation is this radiant, immediate awareness. Since it is radiant and without error, it is called a medium. Third, the great medium of errorless conduct is this radiant, immediate awareness. Since it is radiant and without error, it is called a medium. Fourth, the great medium of errorless result is this radiant, immediate awareness. Since it is radiant and without error, it is called a medium. Now, the four great nails, which are unchanging, are presented. First, the great nail of the unchanging view is this radiant, immediate awareness. Since it is firm throughout the three times of past, present, and future, it is called a nail. Second, the great nail of unchanging meditation is this radiant, immediate awareness. Since it is firm throughout the three times of past, present, and future, it is called a nail. Third, the great nail of unchanging conduct is this radiant, immediate awareness. Since it is firm throughout the three times, it is called a nail. Fourth, the great nail of the unchanging result is this radiant, immediate awareness. Since it is firm throughout the three times of past, present, and future, it is called a nail. Now, follows the esoteric instruction, which reveals the three times to be one. Abandon your notions of the past without attributing a temporal sequence. Cut off your mental associations regarding the future without anticipation. Rest in a spacious modality without clinging to the thoughts of the present. Do not meditate at all, since there is nothing upon which to meditate. Instead, revelation will come through undistracted mindfulness. Since there is nothing by which you can be distracted, nakedly observe all that arises in this modality, which is without meditation and without distraction. When this experience arises, intrinsically aware, naturally cognizant, naturally radiant and clear, it is called the mind of enlightenment. Since, within this mind of enlightenment, there is nothing upon which to meditate, this modality transcends all objects of knowledge. Since, within this mind of enlightenment, there are no distractions, it is the radiance of the essence itself. This Buddha body of reality, union of radiance and emptiness, in which the duality of appearance and emptiness is naturally liberated, becomes manifest in this way, unattained by the structured path to Buddhahood, and thus Vajrasattva is actually perceived at this moment. Now, follows the instructions, which bring one to the point where the six extreme perspectives are exhausted. Though there is a vast plethora of discordant views, within this intrinsic awareness or single nature of mind, which is the naturally originating pristine cognition, there is no duality between the object viewed and the observer. Without focusing on the view, search for the observer. Though one searches for this observer, none will ever be found. So at that instant, one will be brought to the exhaustion point of the view. At that very moment, one will encounter the innermost boundary of the view, since there is no object at all to be observed. And since one has not fallen into a primordial vacuous emptiness, the lucid awareness which is now present is itself the view of the great perfection. Here, There is no duality between realization and lack of realization, though there is a vast plethora of discordant meditations within this intrinsic awareness, which penetrates ordinary consciousness to the core. There is no duality between the object of meditation and the meditator. Without meditating on the object of meditation, search for the meditator. Though one searches for this meditator, none will be found. So at that instant, one will be brought to the exhaustion point of meditation. At that very moment, one will encounter the innermost boundary of meditation, since there is no object at all on which to meditate. And since one has not fallen under the sway of delusion, drowsiness, or agitation, the lucid, uncontrived awareness which is now present is itself the uncontrived meditative equipoise or concentration. Here, there is no duality between abiding and non-abiding. Though there is a vast plethora of discordant modes of conduct within this intrinsic awareness, which is the unique seminal point of pristine cognition, there is no duality between the action and the actor. Without focusing on the action, search for the actor. Though one searches for this actor, none will be found. So at that instant, one will be brought to the exhaustion point of conduct. At that very moment, one will encounter the innermost boundary of conduct, since, from the beginning, there has been no conduct to undertake, and since one has not fallen under the sway of bewildering propensities, the lucid, uncontrived awareness which is now present is itself pure conduct. Without having to be contrived, modified, accepted, or rejected. Here, there is no duality between purity and impurity. Though there is a vast plethora of discordant results within this intrinsic awareness, which is the nature of mind, the spontaneous presence of the three Buddha bodies, there is no duality between the object of attainment and the attainer. Without focusing on the attainment of the result, search for the attainer. Though one searches for this attainer, none will be found. So at that instant, one will be brought to the exhaustion point of the result. At that very moment, one will encounter the innermost boundary of the result. Since, whatever the projected result, there is nothing to be attained, and since one has not fallen under the sway of rejection and acceptance, or hope and doubt, the naturally radiant awareness which is now spontaneously present is the fully manifest realization of the three Buddha bodies within oneself. Here, there is the result, a temporal Buddhahood itself. Pro tip: meditating on your breath while he reads will blow your mind. Try it. Thank you for the donation, Asmiel. Synonyms for awareness. This awareness, free from the 8 extremes, such as eternalism and nihilism and so forth, is called the middle way, which does not fall into any extremes. It is called awareness because mindfulness is uninterrupted. It is given the name nucleus of the Tathagata because emptiness is naturally endowed with this nucleus of awareness. If one understands this truth, one reaches perfection in all aspects. For which reason, this awareness is also called the perfection of discriminative awareness. Furthermore, it is called the Great Seal, because it transcends the intellect and is atemporally free from extremes. And further, it is called the ground of all, because this awareness is the ground of all joys and sorrows associated with cyclic existence and nirvana. The distinction between these being contingent on whether or not this awareness is realized. Further, This radiant and lucid awareness is itself referred to as ordinary consciousness, on account of those periods when it abides in its natural state in an ordinary, non-exceptional way. Thus, however many well-conceived and pleasant-sounding names are applied to this awareness, in reality, those who maintain these names do not refer to this present conscious awareness, but to something else above and beyond it. Resemble someone who has already found an elephant, but is out looking for its tracks elsewhere. Though one were to scan the entire external universe, searching for the nature of mind, one would not find it. Buddhahood cannot be attained other than through the mind. Not recognizing this, one does indeed search for the mind externally. Yet how can one find one's own mind when one looks for it elsewhere? This is like a fool, for example, who, when finding himself amidst a crowd of people, becomes mesmerized by the spectacle of the crowd and forgets himself. Then, no longer recognizing who he is, starts searching elsewhere for himself, continuously mistaking others for himself. Similarly, since one does not discern the abiding nature, which is the fundamental reality of all things, one is cast into cyclic existence, not knowing that appearances are to be identified with the mind, and, not discerning one's own mind to be Buddha, nirvana becomes obscured. The apparent dichotomy between cyclic existence and nirvana is due to the dichotomy between ignorance and awareness. But there is in reality no temporal divide between these two, even by a single moment. Seeing the mind as extraneous to oneself is indeed bewildering, yet bewilderment and non-bewilderment are of a single essence. Since there exists no intrinsic dichotomy in the mental continuum of sentient beings, the uncontrived nature of mind is liberated just by being left in its natural state. Yet if you remain unaware that bewilderment originates in the mind, you will never understand the meaning of actual reality. So you should observe that which naturally arises and naturally originates within your own mind. First, observe the source from which these appearances initially originated. Second, observe the place in which they abide in the interim. And third, observe the place to which they will finally go. Then one will find that, just as, for example, a pond-dwelling crow does not stray from its pond, even though it flies away from the pond, similarly, although appearances arise from the mind, they arise from the mind and subside into the mind of their own accord. This nature of mind, which is all-knowing, aware of everything, empty and radiant, is established to be the manifestly radiant and self-originating pristine cognition, present from the beginning just like the sky. As an indivisible union of emptiness and radiance, this itself is actual reality. The indication that this is the actual reality is that all phenomenal existence is perceived in the single nature of one's own mind. And this nature of mind is aware and radiant. Therefore, recognize this nature to be like the sky. However, this example of the sky, though used to illustrate actual reality, is merely a symbol, a partial and provisional illustration. For the nature of mind is aware, empty, and radiant in all respects, while the sky is without awareness, empty, inanimate, and void. Therefore, the true understanding of the nature of mind is not illustrated by the metaphor of the sky. To achieve this understanding, let the mind remain in its own state without distraction. Now, with regard to the diversity of relative appearances, they are all perishable. Not one of them is genuinely existent. All phenomenal existence, all the things of cyclic existence and nirvana are the discernible manifestations of the unique essential nature of one's own mind. This is known because whenever one's own mental continuum undergoes change, there will arise the discernible manifestation of an external change. Therefore, all things are the discernible manifestations of mind. For example, the 6 classes of living beings discern phenomenal appearance in their differing ways. Eternalist extremists and others who are remote from the Buddhist perspective perceive appearances in terms of a dichotomy of eternalism and nihilism, and followers of the 9 sequences of the vehicle perceive appearances in terms of their respective views, and so forth. For as long as this diversity of appearances is being perceived and diversely elucidated, differences as to the nature of appearances are apprehended, and consequently bewilderment comes about through attachment to those respective views. Yet, even though all those appearances of which one is aware in one's own mind do arise as discernible manifestations, Buddhahood is present simply when they are not subjectively apprehended or grasped. Bewilderment does not come about on the account of these appearances, but it does come about through their subjective apprehension. Thus, if the subjectively apprehending thoughts are known to be of the single nature of mind, they will be liberated of their own accord. All things that appear are manifestations of mind. The surrounding environment, which appears to be inanimate and stable, that too is mind. The sentient life forms which appear as the 6 classes of living beings, they too are mind. The joys of both the gods and humans of the higher existences which appear, they too are mind. The sorrows of the 3 lower existences which appear, they too are mind. The 5 poisons representing the dissonant mental states of ignorance which appear, they too are mind. The awareness that is self-originating pristine cognition which appears, it too is mind. The beneficial thoughts conducive to attainment of nirvana which appear, they too are mind. The obstacles of malevolent forces and spirits which appear, they too are mind. The deities and spiritual accomplishments which manifest exquisitely, they too are mind. The diverse kinds of pure vision which appear, they too are mind. The non-conceptual one-pointed abiding in meditation which appears, it too is mind. The colors characteristic of objects which appear, they too are mind. The state without characteristics and without conceptual elaboration which appears, it too is mind. The non-duality of the single and the multiple which appears, it too is mind. The unprovability of existence and non-existence which appears, it too is mind. If you cannot hear the teachings right now, you're not going to be able to hear the teachings when you go and seek after them. There are no appearances at all apart from those that originate in the mind. The unimpeded nature of mind assumes all manner of appearances. Yet, though these appearances arise, they are without duality, and they naturally subside into the modality of mind, like waves in the waters of an ocean. Whatever names are given to these unceasingly arising objects of designation, in actuality there is but one single nature of mind, and that single nature of mind is without foundation and without root. Therefore, it is not perceptible at all, in any direction whatsoever. It is not perceptible as substance, for it lacks inherent existence in all respects. It is not perceptible as emptiness, for it is the resonance of awareness and radiance. It is not perceptible as diversity, for it is the indivisibility of radiance and emptiness. This present intrinsic awareness is manifestly radiant and clear, and even though there exists no known means by which it can be fabricated, and even though this awareness is without inherent existence, it can be directly experienced. Thus, if it is experientially cultivated, all beings will be liberated. Conclusion. All those of all differing potential, regardless of their acumen or dullness, may realize this intrinsic awareness. However, for example, even though sesame is the source of oil and milk of butter, but there will be no extract if these are unpressed or unchurned. Similarly, even though all beings actually possess the seed of Buddhahood, sentient beings will not attain Buddhahood without experiential cultivation. Nonetheless, even a cowherd will attain liberation if he or she engages in experiential cultivation. For even though one may not know how to elucidate this state intellectually, one will, through experiential cultivation, become manifestly established in it. One whose mouth has actually tasted molasses does not need others to explain its taste. But even learned scholars who have not realized this single nature of mind will remain the victims of bewilderment. For however learned and knowledgeable in explaining the 9 vehicles they may be, they will be like those who spread fabulous tales of remote places they have never seen. And as far as the attainment of Buddhahood is concerned, they will not approach it, even for an instant. If this nature of intrinsic awareness is understood, virtuous and negative actions will be liberated right where they are. But if this single nature is not understood, one will amass nothing but future lives within cyclic existence, with its higher and lower realms. Regardless of whether one has engaged in virtuous or non-virtuous actions. Yet, if one's own mind is simply understood to be pristine cognition, utterly empty of inherent existence, the consequences of virtuous and negative actions will never come to fruition. For just as a spring cannot materialize in empty space, within the realization of emptiness, virtuous and negative actions do not objectively exist. So it is that, for the purpose of nakedly perceiving the manifestly present intrinsic awareness, this natural liberation through naked perception is most profound. Thus, by following this instruction, one should familiarize oneself with this intrinsic awareness, profoundly sealed. Ema, this introduction to awareness, natural liberation through naked perception, has been composed for the sake of future generations, the sentient beings of a degenerate age. It integrates in a purposefully concise abridgment all my preferred tantras, transmissions, and esoteric instructions. Though I have disseminated it at this present time, it may be concealed as a precious treasure. May it be encountered by those of the future who have a positive inheritance of past actions. Samaya, raga, raga, raga. This treatise, concerning the direct introduction to awareness, entitled Natural Liberation Through Naked Perception, was composed by Padmakara, the preceptor of Odiyana. May its influence not be ended until cyclic existence has been emptied. Emaho, Emaho, Emaho. Okay, so we have time now for sharing experience or asking the question. By ending the reliance on conceptual thought, we may attain to wisdom rather than just intelligence or an accumulation of knowledge. So this intrinsic awareness is already inseparable from your mind. Your mind is intrinsic awareness. It's just you don't necessarily recognize that because you're believing in all these different kinds of thoughts. So this is the practice of ending belief in conceptual thoughts and attaining to or recognizing or realizing this precious treasure, this intrinsic awareness. Something that's nameless. Kind of like we see ourselves as a thing. So this is like a thing, right? And so you see yourself as a thing. And it's like realizing that this thing is much more space than it is a thing. That your identity is much more identitylessness or not free from identity than it is an identity. Kind of like realizing how the sky is boundless. You can't fill up the sky. So holding on to the notion of self is like attempting to fill up the sky, attempting to fill space. It's just impossible. So that impossibility of yourself is realizing intrinsic awareness. So there's varying, you could say there's varying degrees that people recognize that or realize that. Some people think that they realize that, but actually they have basically no relationship with that realization. And they cling very strongly to conceptual thoughts about what's happening in themselves, in the world, etc. And that's what this intrinsic awareness is basically totally free from. Taking that into a meditative position, it's experientially realizing that pain is empty. And it's only by you subjectifying that pain that you make pain painful. Not the pain itself, but the subject of it, being the subject of pain. That's why the training in meditation dismantles that identification with the subject, the I, the grasping, the something in particular, and instead realizing everything that is already not something. So free from the self. Free from our ideas about what's going on here. Free from our ideas about what's happening here, period. Somehow, we say, okay. And then we bring up an idea and we say, what about this idea? Same deal. So it's a process of like this instantaneous renewal of not grasping onto what appears. So in that sense, silence is very loud and rich and full. There's nothing louder than silence. Then we get into kind of seeing through the reality of labeling, that there actually is no labeling in reality, other than that brought up or assumed up position of labeling in reality at that moment. And that is temporal, whereas this instantaneous awareness is atemporal. Anything, any thought, any situation, any physical thing, any mental thing, anything arises from where? Stays where? Goes back to where? So you have to look into your own mind to understand this. And this is a kind of understanding that's free from understanding. So it'll sound like a puzzle until you realize the puzzle is what ordinary beings are doing, constantly cycling in these different realms, which is what modern psychology calls being healthy and happy, or being mentally ill, or all these different labels. But it's much more realistic to talk about it in terms of these realms of existence that are non-scientific, not based in identity, not based in the real situation. Because the realest situation that can be brought up is nuclear bombs destroying ourselves, or a monkey, blah, 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 blah. The highest science, the most money, all this different stuff is just a monkey. So there's no absolute position to it. I am thinking about doing something productive. I'll admit that. Okay, how's everybody doing? Mm. I was just talking with my dad. I haven't talked with him for a bit. It was really good. Well, we had a difficult relationship with the family growing up because my dad, he grew up in a way where he always wanted to get married and have kids. He kind of like a sweetheart and funny guy and heavy set guy in high school and all that, but very amenable and very funny. And so he married my mom, and it was my mom was like a very, demure, skinny, um, like redheaded woman, like a homecoming kind of lady, girl, woman. And so it was, and then so they got married, and then they had me and my sister, like one year after another when they were like 19 or 20. So that was my dad's, I think, his whole like entire dream, you know. And then for whatever reason they separated, and then my dad's, dream fell out entirely, and brokenhearted probably, and then also having your kids taken away from you. He, really have so much love in him for me and my sister, and it just, yeah. So we were talking about my dad. Me and my sister, we have very, very small amount of like early childhood memories because of the, I guess the disturbance and the stress and the destabilization from the separation. Uh, yeah, my dad had cancer. My sister had cancer. Apparently, she's in rehab right now. I'm hoping to talk to my mom again soon. Yeah, so it was a mess. And yeah, it was a really difficult situation growing up. And I came out on the other side, after graduating from high school. I wasn't marrying my high school sweetheart. You know, I was losing myself. You think I'm crazy here? Imagine me not being able to leave my room because of how deep my depression was and my social isolation was, to where it's two times in my life where the depression and the mind, the instability of the mind, the out of controlness of the mind has gotten so bad that I've just said, I need medication. I didn't know spirituality. I didn't know another avenue to go down. And both of those times I felt immediately that medicine or that stuff, it wasn't for me. Uh, but so I've, this past decade, more than a decade, from graduating high school at 19 or 18 to now, has been digging myself out of the trench of myself, and mental illness and intense mental suffering, you know like just full on like being lost. My dad was talking about he has a business, and it's a seasonal business, so he has to kind of go in and out of debt, and he's gotten another job, and It's a different way of life, and I think that a part of my lack of an ability to really connect with people is that I don't have the chance to listen enough to the situations that these people are in and really receive the insight and the wisdom and the experience of what they're going through, because I'm not in that situation. I would just listen to my dad talk about that, and actually taking this is the first time I've always, I felt bad because my dad wasn't around and moving around and going back and forth and conflict. I always kind of had this sense of, anger in me about my dad because he wasn't there. He wasn't able to be there for a lot of my life. And this is the first time I actually sit down and listen to him and listen to him sharing his experience. And I got a lot of good feeling from that. So I had to seek. I mean, it was either be psychotic, be schizophrenic, be a horrible person, lost, or fight. So I've fought. And there's a deep fear in me of getting pulled back into where I fought to get out of. So sometimes that fear comes up. I have to watch it. I wish that fear wasn't there. Yeah, thank you. And I hope to live up to that. Yeah, I saw that. 100% Stevie. It's just growing up, my family made me who I am today. So I maybe there's some things I would want to change, but then I wouldn't be me. And I wouldn't want to not be me in doing what I'm doing right now. But growing up, that environment was something that I was trying to get away from. The instability, the emptiness of it. I'm trying to fill that up with something. Okay, remember to keep 5 precepts, snarf fill. So there's a grounding that I believe can come from going towards that, but there's also a fear in going towards that. Deep fear, great fear. And realistically, it probably won't be that long until one of my grandparents passed away, and my grandparents have always been kind of the stable foundation in the midst of my parents' divorce and moving around all these different places. That was the one home that was a home, was my grandparents' house. New season of Invincible. Okay. I think that's also part of where my rage comes from, is being seen in a way that I feel that I'm definitely not. And people that have this idea about me very strongly that doesn't represent who I am or what I'm about or what my experience is. There's this kind of childish rage in me about that. And in talk with my dad, I actually feel I need to listen more. There's a lot of benefit in me listening more. The guy, I have an update about that interesting American Zen guy that we talked to on stream. You guys didn't see him, but you were there for the call. So he emailed me back. I think I just said, "Hey, what's up?" or sent him a picture, and he said he's gonna make his YouTube channel private, um, because of the position that he's taking up in the monastery, and in a couple years he'll open it up again, and we'll make a video together at that point. He said, "Take good care and keep up your good work for the benefit of all living beings." Eshin. Really cool guy. Okay, Anonymous here said, why do you wish the fear wasn't there? Isn't that against the teaching? Only when we accept and befriend fear will we be free. Yeah.
Self or for others. And a dedication happens after doing something positive, like, your meditation, study, or good action, like you offer, you help, whatever, then you dedicate that. You offer the merit or that virtue of that action for the benefit of others. That's dedication, right? So that's why in the teachings of Shantandewa, in here many verses are aspirational prayers, right? Here, like you can see that. And at the end of the final chapter, the 10th, is dedication of merit for all beings. So these are in this chapter, in this third chapter, there's all these verses are, Shantandeva's teach here the prayers, the aspirations. So you have to kind of understand what means prayer and aspiration. Then the 10th stanza, it says, may I become a boundless treasure for those who are poor and destitute, a source of everything they require, always available and nearby. Okay, here it expresses the Bodhisattva's aspiration to offer without limit to people who lack what they need. Those without sort of basic necessities such as food, shelter, or clothing. Those who feel emotionally lonely or hopeless, and those who are spiritually confused and without guidance. So whatever the need, whether material support or spiritual teachings, the Bodhisattvas dedicate themselves to help those suffering from both outer and inner poverty. Then we say this. Now the question is, do these Bodhisattva prayer, the aspirations, literally come true? The answer is I think yes and no. It depends on the practitioner's level of realization. The deeper meaning of the aspiration and the karmic connections among beings. If a practitioner has high realization and capacity, their mind and their actions are pure and their aspirations are powerful. For such a practitioner, their prayers can manifest externally, sort of in tangible ways, helping beings and creating positive conditions or inspiring others. So for highly realized bodhisattvas, their compassion arises effortlessly. Their activities spontaneously benefit beings, and they can manifest in also like many different forms. They appear as whatever is needed. As you know, some bodhisattvas, these high realizations, bodhisattvas manifest as a different deities, like, Avalokiteshvara appears when beings need compassion. Tara appears when beings need protection. So some bodhisattvas may also, we believe that, manifest as objects, such as, food, medicine, and so on and so forth. So from this perspective, the aspiration and prayer does come true for those with great capacity, realization, and who has a strong karmic connection with beings. On the other hand, when ordinary practitioners, like myself, make this aspiration, it says, may I become a boundless teacher. It does not mean that, for example, I immediately turn into, actual food, money, objects, or whatever someone needs. However, the main purpose of these aspirations is to transform my mind, to develop my bodhicitta, compassion, and to strengthen my commitment to helping others. So the aspiration may still influence the mind and gradually develop positive habits and pure